Who have we got? Sue Hart, I can see there. Greg, I can see there.
You all right, fella?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate.
Good.
Saskia,
Hi. Hello,
Cara, Isabel, Grant Foster out in Spain, Siri. Who else we got?
Kevin
David.
Porter, his first one. Good to see you
Um,
online, David.
yeah, good to see you too, mate. Liz Oliver. I can't see everybody because we've got Frank, we've got Ken, we've got Claire Miller, we've got Kim Blackmore. Kim, I haven't seen you for a long time.
I know.
Hope
It's been a long, long, long time.
Caroline DeA, Dan Lake down in Farnham, Roger, Arthur out in Australia. Great stuff. Debbie, thanks for your message today. I've told Sally about it, so we're all set for that. Paul, I think you were out in Chicago, if I remember rightly. Yep, I got that one right. Linda Weatherly, not on the sofa,
No, in the office.
in the office. Alicia, great to see you. Rennie Matthews, brilliant. Who else have we got down here? Bart, out in the Netherlands, I believe. Bart.
Correct, the Netherlands.
Yeah, the Netherlands. We're coming out soon.
I've heard something.
Well,
Looking forward.
you've heard something, have you? Only the good stuff is true, Bart. Only the good stuff is true. So, welcome to the first episode of The Spiritual Entrepreneur. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We'll be doing this 7 episodes. So another 6 weeks after this one. It'll be on a Wednesday at 7:30. We encourage you, if you can, to be here live with us on the Zoom call, because it just really makes the energy and the collaboration and contribution, all that better. Though obviously you've probably already seen that the session is being recorded and will be made available to people who've registered. It will never be posted publicly. But for people who are registered, you will get a recording of all of those episodes. Also, a little bit of housekeeping. I'm gonna talk for, I keep saying I'm going to talk for about 15-20 minutes, and then I end up talking for about an hour. But and then we'll take Q&A. And the way we'll manage Q&A is that if you can put your question in the chat, then Sally, who's co-host of this event, will manage the questions. If we could keep your microphones muted during the session, so that any noise that you've got going on in your local environment doesn't take over the speaker view. And then when Sally goes like, okay, for instance, Ken, you've got a question, then if you then unmute your microphone and ask your question and then mute it again, and I will answer them all. So that's just a little bit of housekeeping there for you. So where did this idea come from? I'm always thinking about what is going to be of highest value for people with these master classes. And thank you for joining in on the previous ones. The perception is projection, think and grow rich, and everyday magic. If you didn't take part in those are actually now available on our YouTube channel, Real World NLP and Huna, and also on the c21nlp.com platform. So just to put them all in one place to make it easy to find them. And one of the things I've experienced over the last 33 years, because I've been in the personal development space now for 33 years. I started my own business in 1990. And it was a personal challenge for me, because I'd set up my own business. I'd started to get into personal development via NLP. I'd started to get into spiritual development in a number of different ways, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And obviously, an important thing for any of those of you here who have your own business, and I know that's a good number of you, is that it's important to bring money in, and we're encouraged to set big goals, big financial goals. But then I started to run into, for me personally, a bit of a conflict between money, and particularly a lot of money, and spirituality. And over the years, I've found that I wasn't the only one. There was a good number of people who had a conflict between particularly big money, a lot of money, and being into spiritual development. So I started to look at, where was that coming from? And my upbringing, spirituality was religion, and it was one particular religion. It was Christianity, Church of England, and there was a number of things that I was quoted, which I later discovered were misquoted, but quoted in my childhood years. I've made a couple of them here, actually, on my remarkable money is the root of all evil, was one of the things that I was taught. Again, I discovered later that was a bit of a misquote, because it's actually, if it's fully quoted, it's the love of money is the root of all evil. And then some of you might have heard the same thing. It's easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And you think of this being literal. You've got a needle with an eye in the needle, and you're going to try and fit a camel in through there. Obviously, you're not going to manage that. But then I discovered that the eye of the needle, not eye of a needle, but the eye of the needle, was actually a gate in Jerusalem. That when the main gates to Jerusalem that were open in the daytime were closed, we would open a side gate, which was called the eye of the needle. And you could fit a camel through the eye of the needle, but the camel had to really stoop down, and you needed to take all of the baggage off of the camel. So a few misquotes there. But the thing that really awakened me to all of this and to really start thinking about it was this book here. I don't know if any of you have come across it. The Trick to Money is Having Some, by a guy that I really learned a huge amount from, and then actually became a bit of a friend of mine, Stuart Wilde. He's no longer with us. But there was this quote in The Trick to Money is Having Some. It's quite an old book now, but it's still worth reading. If you haven't read it, then go get it and read it. Which was, and I didn't understand it, because there's a whole number of quotes in there from Stuart, kind of like aphorisms, I would say, rather than quotes. And one of them was, making a lot of money is a hands-on spiritual experience. Making a lot of money is a hands-on spiritual experience. And you can see Stuart on the back of the book there with his Rolls Royce. Stuart was kind of like taken as being the spiritual guru's guru, and he was very, very financially successful. And but making a lot of money is a hands-on spiritual experience. And I didn't know about Huna at this point in time. This would have been about 1991, 1992. I didn't discover Huna until really, well, in its formal sense, May 1993. So another one of the authors that I'd been reading and loved reading was Dan Millman, and his book, which was actually made into a movie, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. The second book, the Path of the Peaceful Warrior, I later discovered actually was a Huna book. Though at the time when I read it, I didn't realize that. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about what I interpreted Stuart in saying making a lot of money as a hands-on spiritual experience. Hands-on is a really important thing there. And this is what I then learned from Huna as to an interpretation of that. And we're going to be talking about a lot of this as we go along over our 7 weeks together, as to what that actually means and how we can make it work. Did somebody just say something just then, or was that just a blip? I'll take it as a blip. Okay. So, and many of you who've studied Huna will know about this. So let me just move my chair out of the way so I can use my flip chart, and then just move the camera a little bit so you can see me. So you'll have seen this diagram. If you stood in your Huna with me, you'll have seen this before. The idea of the 4 bodies: the spiritual body, the mental body, the emotional body, and the physical body. I'm just going to put a little bit of extra information on there because this would be, the emotional body would be the etheric body, and the mental body would be what other people would call the astral body. So, and you'll notice that each of these bodies here are divided into 2. So we've got lower emotional, upper emotional, lower mental, upper mental, lower spiritual, upper spiritual. And we've obviously got our physical body, which means we've got 7 bodies, or what in some systems would be called the 7 planes of existence, the 7 aspects of God, 7 aspects of creation, etc. So 7 levels, with the bottom one being the physical level, which relate to, in our body, the 7 chakras, the crown chakra, on the crown, top of the head, the 3rd eye, which comes out of the between your eyebrows, front and back, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, which the Hawaiians would call the Na'au, or where they believed our unconscious mind lived. Then the 2nd chakra, which is really key here, because it's in alignment with the sexual organs. It's taken as being the sexual chakra. And then we've got the root chakra, which comes out between our legs. And this is the energy system in our body. And you can think of, and I'm not going to go into this in detail because you can find it on my HUNA webinar that I did in more detail. I want to talk about this specifically around money. And, you know, I chose this as being the real launch pad for the spiritual entrepreneur because, you know, entrepreneur is very values level 5, and entrepreneurs are driven by making money and driven by making a lot of money. So by putting them together, the spiritual entrepreneur, how do you make a lot of money whilst maintaining, whilst living, if you like, a spiritual lifestyle, whatever spiritual means to you. Like, as I say, when I was brought up, spiritual was religion. Now, spiritual for me would be HUNA. And, you know, I did speak to Sally about this and said, maybe I shouldn't have called it the spiritual entrepreneur because spiritual now doesn't really have a deep meaning for me. Something that has a deeper meaning for me now would be magical. So maybe I should have called it the magical entrepreneur. But we'd already launched it by then, so it was too late. So this is the energy system in our body. And the thing I think that's very important to realize is that we tend to think of money, even today, we tend to think of money as being physical because we have these physical representations of them, the British pound notes, but also, you know, before Apple Pay and all those kind of things, we also used to pay with these things, you know, which was our physical manifestation of how we paid money. And money never has been physical, because even when there was only a physical manifestation of money, as in banknotes, coins, etc., pieces of gold, pieces of silver, it was always about a transfer of energy. And I think now, and this is a big thing that many people are struggling with, is the fact that now, you know, they're wanting to do away with these physical manifestations of the money that we have, the money that we exchange, and having it all become online. So now it is actually reaching the form it's always been in, which is an energetic transfer, of value. And this is the energy system in the body. And what we've got is that all energy is energy. It's just that where we experience it in our body changes the way that we physically experience that in our body. So here, seventh chakra is purely spiritual energy. Two things about that. This is why I've drawn this on the flip chart here. Infinite. The energy in the universe is, for our kind of like mindset and thinking, infinite, totally abundant. And I think this is what, you know, I can't check this in with Stuart now because, as I say, he passed away a good number of years ago. But I think this is what he actually meant by this, was that to bring this infinite source of energy down into the form of money is a hands-on spiritual experience. So what does hands-on spiritual experience mean? For me, hands-on means probably a word that for many people on the planet today is a four-letter word. It begins with W, ends in K. And a lot of people think it's one of the most disgusting words in the English language. And it's work. If you were thinking it was a different word that started with W and ended in K with four letters, that's your mind, not mine. Okay. So what does work mean? Work means action. Taking physical action, hands-on, to transfer and to transform this abundant, infinite amount of energy up here down through the planes of existence into the form that we can spend as money. Now, from that, you'll notice that the arrow that's come down on both sides from the purely spiritual level, I didn't bring all the way down into the physical. I brought it down into this level here, the second chakra, what many people call the sexual chakra. But then think about this. What is the true purpose of sex? I mean, yeah, it's like, it's fun. We enjoy it. It's great. And what is the true purpose of sex? It is a physical manifestation, which the majority of people think, therefore, that the energy here is about the creation of a new physical life form, as in a baby. Yes. And everything that we create on the physical plane, we use the energy from the second level, the lower etheric body. Now, you know, if you look at things from a historical point of view, the wealthiest people on the planet have also been renowned for having an abundance of sexual energy. And for those of you who did Think and Grow Rich with me, then, you know, we spent an entire episode, I think it was chapter 13, the transmutation of sexual energy, in Napoleon Hill's book, which was totally about how do we go about taking this energy here and bringing it down in a monetary form, a financial form. So, because all energy is energy, you know, you could look at it this way, actually. To not be wealthy, to not make a lot of money, would be to not be spiritual. I've experienced both extremes. I've experienced making a lot of money. I've also experienced making very little money. When I was what a lot of people would call poor, and not living, you know, a financially wealthy lifestyle, I didn't feel more spiritual. In fact, I felt less spiritual. Here's the reason why. when I decided what my spiritual path was in 1993, and my spiritual path I decided was Huna, then that required me to have those spiritual experiences in a Huna perspective at that time. Remember, this is the early 1990s, meant I got to travel to Hawaii. That requires you to invest a substantial amount of money in getting to Hawaii, in paying for the trainings, etc., 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 even more now than back in 1993. So that was my spiritual drive to make the money to be able to invest in my own spiritual development. And, you know, one of my mentors, Uncle George Naopi, actually said, you know, if you haven't got any money, how can you be spiritual? And Uncle was a money-making machine. You know, he attracted investors so that he could launch the first ever Merry Monarch festival in Hawaii to celebrate Hawaiian hula. He didn't use the money for himself. I went to his house. He had a very humble house. I don't think he actually had a car. And though he attracted a huge amount of money to do this very spiritual legacy, which is still going on many, many years after Uncle passed over. So a bit of a controversial one to kick off with is that, and I like that quote from Stuart Wilde, making a lot of money is a hands-on spiritual experience. It's really about embracing what spiritual is about and which is abundance, and letting go of, you know, many of the limiting beliefs and limiting decisions that we've picked up along the way from our upbringing. So, and what we're going to talk about over the next 6 episodes is how to actually make this happen. How to be what I've labeled a spiritual entrepreneur or a magical entrepreneur, whichever word works best for you. So I'm going to open that up to the floor now. Let me just change my camera angle around a little bit and see what questions we have on any of that. So as I said before, if you want to put questions in the chat, then Sally will manage the questions. So what do you want to know, guys? Sally, do we have any questions?
We don't, no, none at all tonight. Oh, here we go.
Well,
Zirkas. Is Huna similar to what Bob Proctor teaches?
Bob Proctor, I know Bob Proctor's work well. I never actually met him, though I do know a lot of people who worked actually personally one-to-one with him. A very good friend of mine, Marie Diamond, was also worked with Bob and was a very good friend of Bob's. So Bob was a major champion, if you like. I think that's the best word to use for Bob, for Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich. You've probably seen the videos where he's got his original copy of Think and Grow Rich, and the pages are falling out, and he's got notes all over the place. Huna, I would say, certainly would be in alignment with what Bob Proctor was teaching. Though I would say that Huna goes beyond what Bob Proctor was talking about in his interpretation of Think and Grow Rich. In that Huna's a significantly bigger body of knowledge, which is really, and we'll talk about this more as we go along. Huna is about mana and energy, and how we can increase our personal energy, how we can manage that energy, how we can use that energy to create what we want in our own life, how we can use that energy to assist people in creating what they want in their life too, including how could we use energy in the bodies to enable people to heal mentally, emotionally, and potentially physically, which I don't believe that Bob actually taught, but from what I hear from people that know him well, he did understand and know. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, David Reed, do you want to unmic and ask David your question?
Yes, hold on.
I don't know if I can see you on my screen, David, but just...
Oh, I can only just see myself. Right.
If you just wave at me. Okay, I've got you. Yes, I can see you. You're right down at the bottom of the screen. Great.
Did I get that quote right from you? That let me find where I wrote this down. Just a second.
That's okay. Excuse me, just having to wipe myself down a little bit. It's very hot here. And under the studio lights, I'm like...
You said money is an energetic transfer of value. Did I get that right?
Yes. That would be a... Yeah, it's not a quote from somebody else. That would be a quote from me, I guess.
Then that would be a valuable quote then.
Yeah.
with energy being transferred.
Yes.
So if we as entrepreneurs deliver value and we've set ourselves up correctly with the mechanisms of our entrepreneurship,
yep,
we will then receive value.
Yes. In fact, there's another quote which I really love, from Ralph Waldo Emerson, which is anything you rightfully earn cannot be withheld. Anything, yeah. Listen to the next bit though, David. Anything that you don't rightfully earn, you'll pay for.
So do well by your customers rather than screw them over.
Yes. Yeah, and not only customers.
Everyone in the chain.
Anybody in the chain, including your competitors.
Yep.
And I had a direct experience of this. I created a audio product which took me a year to create, and somebody thought it was okay to go into a recording was to give the audio product to an audio typist, have it transcribed, and then go into a recording studio and read it. and which was obviously a major breach of copyright. I spoke to lawyers about it, and they said actually it's not a copyright infringement; it's actually a bootlegging, because it is word for word, which is a criminal offence, not a business matter. And but as it transpired, I'd got no real tangible legal way of taking action on this person.
Yeah.
And they made a significant amount of money out of it. But if we took Ralph Waldo Emerson's thing, they didn't rightfully earn it. So I just had to let it go. But from what I gather, they've paid for it, but they paid for it in a different way.
Okay.
So yeah, and this is something we're going to be talking about. How do we do this hands-on spiritual experience as entrepreneurs? And having that thing from Emerson, that as long as you're going out there creating true value for other people, you will get the recompense for that, the compensation for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question, David. Like it.
Thank you.
Sally, do we have any other questions?
We have a lot of questions. So Alicia,
do we?
you're up. We do. Alicia, you're up.
Oh, I can see you, Alicia. Yep.
Hello. Can you hear
Hello.
me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Okay, so I guess this is what we're going to be talking about over the weeks, but it just occurs to me, from doing Claire Graves' levels of existence, say that quickly.
Values levels, yep.
Yeah, that level 5 of the entrepreneur and level 6 where most spiritual groups sit, and how we blend those two together have different motivations. So that, I know that this is called the spiritual entrepreneur, so you're looking at blending these two. So how do we do that successfully? Because that's where I'm at. I do a lot of spiritual work, and I also I do a lot of NLP and a lot of working with business people, and I usually keep it a bit separate.
Right. Yeah. I think we're going to look at it from a values levels point of view. It would be making sure that we personally were at values level 7, which gives us the flexibility to operate from 5 and 6. I think also for me, I've had people who said, well, if you want to do NLP trainings and you want to attract business people, then you've got to keep quiet about your HUNA stuff. Or if you want to attract people into spiritual development and you into your HUNA, then you've got to keep quiet about your business stuff. And I went, well, that's not me. Because for me, they're not mutually exclusive, which is why we created the group Real World NLP and HUNA. And what got me into what I do now in the early 90s was I was reading the NLP books. Tony Robbins, Unlimited Power got me started. Very values level 5, very entrepreneurial, very monetary success. Then I was into, Stuart Wilde. I was into Dan Millman. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to be able to merge these two things, because I'm getting stuff from NLP that I'm not getting from the spiritual dimension. I'm getting stuff from the spiritual dimension that I'm not getting from the NLP dimension. What would happen if we, from an NLP perspective, did a parts integration and brought the spiritual development and the personal development together? And that's and a friend of mine, who any of you have heard of, the late Dr. Tad James, I think actually did that, because I bought his book, The Secret of Creating Your Future, which is a book about, this young man who meets a wizard. And Mylon is the name of the wizard. And he asked the wizard, how do I create my future? How do I create my future the way that it is? So it's a metaphorical journey through timeline therapy. And I read that and I went like, whoa, okay, this is what I was thinking about. Which also then led me into discovering Huna and all of the other things that I teach. So what I said to these people, and we'll talk about this because this can bring stuff up. It brought stuff up for me. They said, you're going to lose potential business clients if they hear that you're into this woo-woo spiritual stuff. And I said, well, I am. So if they're not okay with it, then they're not my clients. And equally, I had people go like, well, if people are into spiritual development and they see that you work with corporates and you charge this ridiculous amount of money and drive an expensive car and all this kind of stuff, they're not going to want to do your Huna trainings. And I thought, if they've got a problem with it, then I don't want them on my trainings anyway. So it's like, now I go NLP, hypnosis, timeline therapy, magic, Huna, is me. If you don't like any of that, then don't do business with me. And I think it's an interesting concept that to attract customers, you need to be willing to repel people that aren't your customer. So just tell people who you are. This is me. This is what I'm into. If you're up for that, let's play. Let's do business. If you're not, thanks, and have a nice life. I don't know if that answers your question, Alicia, but and there are a lot of very wealthy people around the planet that are really into all of this stuff, and they go like, "Great, I'll pay for it. That's great because this is what I want." And I've got a number of friends and clients that do that very successfully, working with, and you're unlikely to have it here that they're working with the people that they're working with, and they are. In fact, I mentioned one of them earlier in this session, who has a very, very, very exclusive client list for very, very, very esoteric stuff. Sally, do we have other questions?
We do. Kim, you've got a question.
Oh, what it was now. um,
Kim, just wave at me. See if I can see you on the. Okay, yeah, you're.
it's a bit dark here.
The lights are a bit
I
down.
should probably
Yes.
turn the light on or something. This probably has meaning in itself. I think my question was around. I think I might have brought it myself, but around magic and what that really is. And to me, it's like the formless space that stuff comes from, if that makes any sense. But I just wondered if you could shed any light on how you see magic and what that means to you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm talking about, I guess, magic with a capital M rather than, this kind of magic, as in conjuring, which in of itself has an interesting history. Because I was in my early teens, I was a stage magician. That's what I thought was my destiny before I thought my destiny was to be the next Elvis. And so magic for me, and he's a controversial character, but his definition of magic, Aleister Crowley, quite often taken as being, the beast 666 or whatever. Aleister Crowley was just good at marketing. And he said that magic was the ability to create external change in situations, circumstances, and people by making willful change inside of yourself. So the ability to create change in external situations, circumstances, and people by creating willful change inside of yourself would be, probably my favorite definition of magic. That comes from Aleister Crowley's Magic in Theory and Practice, but also is my experience and drive and passion around Huna, because that's what Huna teaches you. So that would be my and then you go, isn't that what we do with NLP? Well, yeah. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the title of the first book in NLP was called The Structure of Magic. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Kim?
Yes, thank you.
Brilliant.
Okay, Alex, you're up.
Alex, wave at me. So.
Yeah, I've got the I'm over here with the multitude of films.
I've got you. Yes, I can see you now. Because the thing is, all of you are like the size of a postage stamp. So, because I like to see everybody.
Oh, bless. It was lovely to see you again. I was like, when it came up, I thought, oh, another 7 weeks. Oh, that's fantastic.
Brilliant. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I've heard sort of various places that money and love are connected. Is that something?
So yes, can be connected in a number of ways. Because of, it's kind of like, nobody nobody will ever pay you more than you truly believe you're worth.
Yeah.
So, there's that thing about, if you want to make $1 million, you've got to feel $1 million. There is a truth to that. And equally, if you don't truly believe that you're worth somebody else's love, then you'll never get it. So they're both measures of your own personal value. If we wanted to kind of like chunk down on a little bit more than that, then there is a direct correlation between money and sex, other than the obvious one. As in, some people say what's the oldest industry or business on the planet, and some people say insurance, other people say sex.
Yeah.
Then, although I've worked with a lot of insurance companies, there is a direct correlation between the amount of money that you make and your sexual energy, which I kind of alluded to here. I went into it in significantly more detail in one of the episodes in Think and Grow Rich, which, as I say, is available on c21nlp.com for free, and also is available on our YouTube channel, Real World NLP and Huna. So I would say there's a number of links, yeah. But then, if we were to, from an NLP point of view, chunk up on everything, then it all becomes energy. So money is an expression of energy, and so is love.
Yeah.
And so is sex. So, so if we chunk up high enough, we'll be able to find a relationship between everything.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Ramilla, you're up.
Ramilla, where are you, Ramilla? Oh, I've got you. I can see you. Yes. I can see you, but I can't hear you, Ramilla.
Okay.
Now I can.
Good, thank you. Just a question about the chakras. So in yoga, you've got Kundalini yoga and then the chakras related. What are the processes in Hawaiian mysticism that allow us to charge, cleanse different chakras depending on the issues that one might be experiencing in life?
Okay, yeah, it wouldn't only be in, it wouldn't only be in Huna, because, I don't know if you can see the colors here, but the emotional body, which is chakras 2 and 3, I've done in blue because they're related to the water element. I didn't have a pale blue pen, but in many systems they have the air element as being green. So the mental body, which would be 4 and 5, would be the air element, and then the spiritual body, this is 6 and 7, I've put as being in red because they're related to the fire element. So, and then the physical body is related to the earth element. So what Huna teaches you is to be able to gain a level of mastery over the elements. And, therefore, if somebody was experiencing a certain challenge in their life, you would be able to work out what element it was related to. and then know how to bring the person back into balance from a elemental perspective. But then there are many things within Huna that we can do to enable somebody to achieve the results that you're talking about. We've now rolled out Huna level 1 here in the UK. We rolled out Huna level 2 in Tenerife earlier this year. We've got another Huna level 2 in Tenerife later this year, and then next year we're going to be rolling out Huna level 3 in 2024. Which, if that's the kind of stuff that you're into, so am I, so are we, and we'll teach you everything.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, Roman.
Okay, Liz.
Yeah, David, I was wondering about what you might have to say about, what Tony Robbins used to talk about in terms of massive action. That was one of the things he kept pushing. And it got to a point where, for me, where it felt like just a bit of a slog. And so I was just wondering whether, in your view, based on the model that you've drawn, whether it's always necessary to do massive action to get great results, or if everything's aligned, can a small action create, the right results?
Yeah, great. That's a great question, Liz. And that's something that we're going to talk about in upcoming episodes. Is, my model of the spiritual entrepreneur is somebody who aligns their life purpose with their life values, with their business values, and their financial goals. So because of that internal alignment, I think, and I've experienced this personally, is that until you do that, you will experience wasting a lot of energy by fighting yourself. Yeah. And so, we're going to look at that in later episodes, because I think it's a really important thing. And your purpose comes from spirit. Your values are in here, the emotional body. Your financial goals are in your mental body, and having all of those aligned. So I think it's a little bit like it's a bit of a paradox in that when you have everything aligned, it's really easy to take massive action. Whereas I think because a lot of people, they haven't got that aligned, taking massive action is a struggle. It's a fight. And it's something that they find that they have to make themselves do, rather than it just being something that's natural.
Yeah. So it's much smarter than to put energy into making all those things aligned than it is to just keep doing and doing and doing more and more and more action.
Yeah. And I've talked about this before on previous things around goal achievement. I have wanted to create a more elegant way of expressing this, and I haven't managed that yet, because what massive action means for me is that you chuck as much shit at the wall as possible and then notice what sticks, because there's no way for you to know what action's going to work until it's worked. Whereas I think a lot of people will go, they overthink it. Whereas you just go, bam. And if it doesn't stick, then don't chuck it anymore.
Yeah.
But then, you know, when everything else is in alignment too, it's a. I think it was against Stuart Wilde. I think one of his first books was called "Life Was Never Meant to Be a Struggle." So, and that's the kind of thing I think we're talking about. When you're in alignment, the struggle disappears.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Liz. That was a great question.
Okay, Isabel Thompson. She's still here.
Yep, I can see it. She's on the top right-hand corner. She's waving at me. She might not be on your top right-hand corner, but she's my top right-hand corner.
I think have I unmuted successfully?
Now I can hear you.
Oh, fabulous. Hello.
Hello.
I think my question has kind of been answered really, because it was very much about the chakras and energy. Because if we're going to learn, I was just thinking, if we're going to learn how to harness the whole universal energy and translate it down through into physical cash, pound notes, then potentially if there's any energy that's stuck in any of the chakras, we need to learn how to free that. And I just wondered if covering that.
Yeah, it's something that we teach a lot more in our Huna trainings. And you're right. What we're going to look at is specific techniques that we have available to us in NLP, in hypnosis, in timeline therapy, in Huna, to release those potential energetic blocks. So in the 7 episodes, we won't have time to cover those in detail, but what I'm going to do is put in some signposts as to what's there and where you can find out more about it.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Young has a question.
Hello, David.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Long time no see.
Yeah.
Right, now, hopefully not jumping ahead. This may be one of the ones that, you know, you're going to cover later on. Hopefully I've not misunderstood something. Read the route of bringing energy down from the insubstantial to the physical via the sexual plane you mentioned.
Right.
Does the route always go via that plane? And practically speaking, what does that mean in terms of taking action? Is this like sports stars who don't indulge because it builds up energy in the body, or is this something that's going to be handled later, as it were?
So you can't skip a level. So for instance, you can't go from 3 to 1. You've got to go via 2. It is related to sports stars who abstain to maintain or maximize their physical performance. It's but it depends on the person's gender, essentially. And if it's okay with everybody, I'm just going to work on a model of 2 genders rather than 60 whatever. So it's different for male and female. And I think the whole thing is about for both, and this is what Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich, is to preserve the energy here and maximize the energy there.
So is that redirecting energy, or
yes?
Right.
So when I had my first job, when I was in my well, not late teens, kind of like mid-teens, and I worked at the Co-op in Nottingham, the department store, and I'd then become an Elvis fan, and by the time I'd got my physical pay, because I got paid in a pay slip with, physical money in it, by the time I got home, I'd spent it all on Elvis records. And my mum used to have a saying, which was, "David, you're throwing your money around like a man with no arms." Which I think my mum actually knew more about non-mirror image reverse inductive language patterns than she let on. Throw the money around like a man with no arms. But I think what a lot of people do with their sexual energy is they throw their sexual energy around like a man or a woman with no arms. Whereas we want to build this and increase this sexual energy to be able to then enable us to redirect that creative force to create, manifest what we want on the physical plane.
Right. Wow. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Good question. I was wondering when it was going to come up, rather than if it would come up. So, Sally, we've been going on for over an hour. So,
Renee Matthews has a question for you.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Rennie. How are you?
Good, and you? Okay, so just as a side note, I kind of thought when you were mentioning Richard had in mind for his character in Good Omens. Nonetheless, my question was that you were saying that you were told to keep NLP away from business or your spirituality away from business, vice versa. I actually found that NLP was useful in business for me, in that when I did a mediation course last year, because now with law, the push is towards mediation to settle disputes. I could not believe how much NLP was helpful in building rapport, finding out where people were coming from, fixing the issues, addressing the issues, finding the bridge. I phoned Simon, who I did my course with way back when, and I said to him, I cannot believe how NLP is actually useful in my work. Anyway, as an aside, you were talking about spirituality. My question to you is, what are your thoughts on AI with reference to spirituality? Sorry.
That's an interesting question. So yeah, I mean, the thing which I mentioned was that people said to me, if you're going to go and do business stuff, keep your spiritual stuff quiet, and vice versa. So right from the start in 1993, we've done NLP business trainings and business consulting, and we have had people go, well, NLP is a bit of a I got a bad reputation in business, so don't tell people. I actually had a company say, we'd like you to come in and do a training for us, but don't mention that you do NLP. I said, have you seen my Facebook page? And my LinkedIn page, you know? And I just went, you know, if they don't want NLP, they don't want me. AI, from your question of spirituality, would be that we didn't put it here, but we have three minds: conscious mind, unconscious mind, and higher self. And AI, by its current definition, wouldn't have a higher self.
Yeah, but if you consider what AI actually is, AI is large language models, which is based on things we've said and done on the internet. So if you consider this, AI is basically an amalgamation of everything that's been said, done, written on the internet by humans.
Yep.
So it is a form of mental push in what we've done, what we've said, what we thought, and sort of just mishmashed and gone, okay, well, here is that. And then surpassing it because it's growing exponentially faster than the humans can actually cope with.
Yeah. So, you know, my degree was in electronics. My final year project was on artificial intelligence. That was in 1984.
Wow. Okay. It was a while back.
It was a while back. I was very young. But then, you know, if we were to look at it from the same model, then yes, it is a collection of everything that people have written on the internet, which would be the equivalent of our unconscious mind.
Exactly.
The storehouse of all of our memories. When you go on to something like ChatGPT and you put in a question or tell ChatGPT to do something, then you become ChatGPT's conscious mind.
Okay.
And though we have the higher self, which would mean that at this point in time, who knows where it's going to go, that AI doesn't have spirit.
No. Because it has limitations.
Yeah. But then, you know, the majority of people on the planet today don't acknowledge that they've got a higher self. So, you know, a lot of people wandering around think they don't even have an unconscious mind.
Paradox.
They look in the mirror and go like, that's me. You know, whereas in actual fact, when you do that, you're denying at least 2/3 of your being. But more than that, because your higher self is infinite.
It's like waving but drowning.
Yeah, so it's you know, it would you're this, you put in the inquiry and ChatGPT. So, you know, when I looked at my project in 1984, it's very, very interesting because I wrote a program which was what's called a natural language parser, which is basically what ChatGPT is. But that's what NLP stands for in artificial intelligence.
I know. I love the correlation there.
And so, you know, obviously computer power has dramatically increased since 1984. but also the access to the database of the entire internet has increased since 1984. But essentially, it's doing the same thing.
Just a hell of a lot faster.
Just a hell of a lot faster and with a lot more information in it.
So the number one question on LinkedIn for the last 2 months has been, am I about to become obsolete because of AI? And I think that's put a lot of fear in people because, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
But I don't think we are.
Whereas, you see, when I was at school, artificial intelligence was just about pretending you were cleverer than you are.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Okay, Sally, are we going to do a wrap?
I think yes. I've got lots of comments.
The rap, as in, look
so I
at the
think
hip hop, heavy, hip hop, not that kind of rap.
yeah, no, yeah. I think we're good. Unless anybody's got any other questions.
And what's our topic next week? Because I haven't got that up on my screen. I think it's about purpose.
Yeah, purpose. Yep.
Yep.
We'll make it about purpose.
Well, yeah. It's about. I think it's the importance of aligning your business with your life purpose. Yeah.
Yep.
So this has been the big picture today, and I also just wanted to, just completely deal with quite often when this kind of topic comes up, that there's the elephant in the room of well, you can't be spiritual and be rich, or well, you can't be rich and be spiritual, or whatever. And I just wanted to deal with that one head on. So then what we can start doing is to start chunking down into exactly what we do to make this a reality in our lives. Yeah. Useful session. Cool. Great. So thank you for joining us, and we'll be here same bat time, same bat channel next Wednesday for episode number 2. As I say, the recording of the session will actually be available within the next day or so, after I've had a chance to edit it, download it, and all those kind of things. Okay. So have a great week, have a great weekend, and we'll see you for episode 2 of The Spiritual Entrepreneur.
Thanks, David.
Glad you liked it so much. Thank you.
Great session.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you. Bye. Bye.